Greetings, travelers. I'm Josh.
And I'm Kahi.
And we're
the Genshin Guys.
Welcome all. This podcast is for fans of Genshin Impact, the mobile game made by Hoyoverse, also known as MiHoYo. Here we talk about our opinions, experiences, and dreams about Genshin Impact. If you like our show, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. So today we have a special episode for you. We are here with special guest from the Genshin Guys community Discord, SeraQ. And Sera is someone who really is passionate about helping the community build their accounts up to tackle the Spiral Abyss, which is one of our main topics for today. And we will get into that a little bit later. But first, Sera, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, as usual. Yeah. So just been playing some Genshin this week and stuff like that. Doing my daily runs, doing dailies, doing resid runs. So just for context, there are a lot of people that probably don't know who I am. And yeah, I'm a day one Genshin player, AR60, super endgame. And at this point, I'm basically a meta slave. And in fact, I'm so over-invested in the game that it feels quite easy to me. It maybe seems like a hot take, but there is a good explanation, which we can go into a bit later. Yeah, it sounds a bit like bragging, but this is like the most important or the most transparent description that I can give you on what type of player I am. So I just really love the game.
You're allowed to brag because you put a lot of time in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point, you have earned it, yes.
No, but yeah, there is a good explanation to why certain players are much, much stronger than other players, so to speak. And it's not only like skill issues. It's not only dependent on that factor, so to speak. But anyways, if you have any questions on builds, combat mechanics, or general account investment, you can come to me. I'm more happy to help.
Yes, exactly. I think we've mentioned you a few times here on the podcast before, but Sera, like, if you don't mind, like, where are you based? Like, what region of the world are you in?
Yeah, so I'm playing in the European server from EU. Mm-hmm. I'm from Sweden, raised and born in Sweden. That's right.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, so just, it kind of just is really cool because it kind of shows how, international our community is.
Exactly,
and how global we are. So, yeah. So if you want to play with Sera, you have to line up with EU time. But yeah. So Sera, thank you for that. Kahi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing rather well. I guess this kind of cut into my weather report time, so I'll just keep it short. Yeah, I've been doing very, very well. This week hasn't been as busy, but I have been trying to make a lot more time to finally enjoy the game after all of my other responsibilities and other games have completed. How about you, Josh? How's your week been? I think you've been having the busiest week of all of us, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just did like a podcast with, like, just before this, I did a podcast with Subutai, a Genshin content creator. Really, really fun. So you guys can check it out. The link is in the Discord, as well as it is in Coffee and Culture's Twitch channel, which will be uploaded to YouTube later. But as far as like outside of game stuff, yeah, I've just been pretty busy, like working on stuff for the Discord, for the podcast, for the Twitch, as well as like my current job search. So I'm looking for some like freelance work, stuff I can put on my resume. I'm looking for like a lot of game related stuff. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. But I am working in Canada, but I can work for America too. So, yeah, that's just something I've been kind of doing. It's been a pretty busy week, but let's go ahead and get into our topics for today. So first, we'll be talking about our weeks in Genshin, as always, as well as a little bit of Genshin news, and the biggest Genshin news, which is the 4.0 live stream, which will be a big chunk of our podcast today, as well as the Spiral Abyss discussion. Spiral Abyss, the real end game. So let's talk about that a little bit later, and then we're going to go into our community discussion question as always, followed by our last wish segment, for which Sera will be joining us along for the ride today. So for those of you that aren't already part of our Discord, feel free to join our Discord. The link is in the description. And if you follow my Twitch as well, I post the Discord link in there as well all the time. So feel free to join us, hang out with us. If you have, questions, discussions, things you want to talk about, feel free to talk to our community about it. So let's go ahead and get started with our first topic, our weeks in Genshin. All right, so Kahi, how was your week in Genshin Impact?
So I think the biggest thing that happened in my week in Genshin is I finally finished that little music video project that I've been working on for at least, I want to say, going on 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
It took, I wasn't expecting it to take that long because recording all the footage, I talked about this last week too, but getting all the footage from different angles, seeing which angle worked. I really wanted to put my favorite characters in, but then realizing it matches some other characters' animations better. Having all of that footage does really help sift through it, so you can actually determine which is the best fit. And I'm sure there's other sequences that might have flowed better, but I also have to keep in mind the song. So this is a really fun project for me. I mean, I love making like music videos, AMVs, GMVs. I've been doing this for years, and it's just my favorite aspect is just timing of it. So finishing that was a big thing for me. I also finished that Perilous Expedition event.
Yeah, nice.
Which surprisingly did not take me nearly as long as like recording any of the footage that I had for the music video. So my
but you
end
didn't
game
do
is basically
Dire,
making
right?
content for it.
You didn't do Dire.
I didn't
mode.
do Dire.
Right. By the way,
so that's pretty much my
where can
week.
people watch your video?
Oh, KAHIYAO. Pretty much like my standard tag. It's on YouTube. I used to have a TikTok, but I don't really use it anymore. So yeah, just mainly YouTube.
Oh well, YouTube Shorts is a thing too, right?
Yep. It's vertical. My videos are meant for landscape widescreen orientation.
Though your video would be pretty good vertically, I would say.
Yeah, but I have to cut it differently because animations kind of go to the side. They fill up more space, especially when you do the bursts.
I mean, being cut off is part of the vertical video format, so that's fine.
Well, yeah, typical. I was never a fan of vertical videos, but that's just personal stuff. But yeah, those are my two big events, two big things that I've been up to this week. How about you, Josh? What have you been up to in Genshin?
Pretty much just been that's a good question. I've been exploring as much as I can, fighting bosses to get boss materials. I'm still trying to do my goal of like clearing 100% of the map completion before Fontaine, but part of me kind of is like okay to maybe wait for 4.0 for Sumeru because of the underground stuff, which I have not revisited since doing the main quests down there. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe if I have time, if I finish Liyue and stuff early, maybe I'll just start working on Sumeru. But anyway, that's kind of just what I've been working on slowly over time. Of course, I did the events, and yeah, it's been pretty great. What about you, Sera? How has your week in Genshin been?
This week hasn't been very exciting, so to speak. There's not much to do since we have Fontaine right around the corner. It's literally the dead week. So in my case, I already finished the Bottleland event, like literally the first week.
Oh, wow.
So this year's summer event was way shorter than usual, right?
Right.
Because I think I remember the other summer events were way longer. But other than that, it's the usual stuff, the dailies, the daily artifact grind. Currently doing Emblem and Shimenawa, the standard domains. So if you don't know what to do with your resin, that's what you should be doing. The Emblem and Shimenawa. At least that's the extremely resin efficient artifact domains. If you care about meta, but all right.
Yeah, the resin effective meta.
Exactly.
The resin efficient meta arcade. Blah blah.
It's all about
that might be the best domain.
It is. I think so. It really is. There's so many units like competing for this 4-set emblem effect. But other than that, today I actually finished my level 10 friendship with Kirara. That was a huge milestone for me.
That's something worth celebrating.
Yeah,
you guys are now best friends.
Exactly. You know that Kirara is like the latest pull for me, I think at least. It should be for most of you also. And this actually means...
She's the newest character.
Yeah, exactly. So this means that all of my units are now officially level 10 in friendship. So I'm done friendship farming. That's it.
Wow, I'm not even close. But wait, are there characters you don't have?
Okay. There are a few units I don't have, like Child, Zhongli, and what else? Sino, maybe. Wanderer.
Wait, so are you gonna go for that new banner?
That's right. I've actually been thinking about that Zhongli for a very long time. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm gonna go for it.
All right, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a moment. But
I mean, if you're talking meta, I mean, literally the man who invented it is coming up.
Exactly.
Okay,
Zhongli
so
is broken. He truly is broken.
he like lets you play the game your way,
Yeah, you
So-
can turn off the brain basically.
Yeah, I love that. Why use our brains? We're playing a video game. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
exactly. Oh my god. But okay, I also been like playing the events.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, like we had 2 events in the past week, right? So we got the combat
Right.
event with the triple
Right.
team rotation, and then now
Yes.
recently we also got the animal event.
The animals.
That's kind of fun and silly, but why not?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
innovative
why not,
at least.
right?
It's quite innovative. I mean, like
Right.
I don't think we had anything like that before, like where you see like the perspective.
eyes of the
exactly,
animals.
the
Yeah.
perspective of an animal from standing somewhere else. And yeah, other than that, not so much. I have nothing else to do in the game. I literally finished 100% in terms of exploration. I mean, like, I could start achievement hunting, but I'm not so sure about that one. It's like a can of worms that I don't want to open.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, hey, that's pretty great though. At least you're super caught up and all this stuff. And but yeah, we'll talk about the end game. That's like our big thing today, right? Like, what do you do now that you've completed Genshin Impact?
Exactly. Yeah.
So obviously, we have all that stuff coming up. So let's move on to our next section, which is Genshin News. Okay, so in Genshin News, there's not really news this week. Just the fact that there is, first of all, no birthdays in this past week, sad. And then we have the shared site event, which Sera was just talking about, where you see through the perspective of little animals, and you have to try to find them. And it's this whole fun little kind of puzzle-esque event, not really combat-oriented. But that's pretty much it, other than like some new music releasing, which like alongside right before the live stream, I believe. But the live stream is the main news. So let's go ahead and move into the live stream discussion. So for those of you that saw the 4.0, as light rain falls without reason, Fontaine trailer, like we had the 1 hour long special where they kind of talk about some of the new mechanics, some of the design philosophies around the game and around Fontaine specifically. Now, there's a lot of new things to touch on, so I'll kind of just go on them one by one. One thing is the biggest addition to the game is, of course, the new region, but the mechanics that come with the new region and that are only available in the new region, as far as we know, which is swimming and underwater exploration. So one of the coolest things I think that we saw in this trailer was that there's also above ground underwater exploration via these floating cubes that are in the air. And
that was clever.
It was really
like
interesting.
that.
I like that you can kind of glide into the wall and just start swimming. It's so interesting.
And it keeps your momentum as you exit, which is also another clever way of traveling, because you get to use physics to your advantage to get to a certain spot to kind of launch you.
The dolphin
or
jump.
to like make you fall a certain way, or dolphin jump, or just being able to use that kind of 3D space to exit and go into completely another gravitational force of area. But it's nice to know that we have all these little clever areas, new little mechanics, or even new game technology that helps us go into the water, because most of it was actually not visible from far away or from like. One thing that the water really helps is your game loading. If you're above the surface of the water, it doesn't even have to load like the visual aspects of anything. But when you get into the water, then of course it has to ignore everything above the water. So it kind of helps keep your game focused, so it doesn't have to render everything into view. But it's actually really clever from a technical standpoint. So I appreciate the new technology that they're adding just for this region.
Yeah, I mean, they have the other interesting thing is that they mentioned that the swimming exploration, since it is Fontaine's main thing, they're going to average out the balance of how much you explore out of the water as well as in the water. So their goal is 50-50-ish exploration. And they said that depending on as regions of Fontaine become released, that you will like have the balance kind of shift back and forth. Like maybe this new area is a primarily underwater exploration area. Maybe it's a primarily above ground exploration area. So, but eventually, when everything comes out, it should balance to about 50-50% exploration underwater and above water, which I think is really cool and very nice of them to tell us that, especially for people who are worried about like, oh, I'm gonna have to be underwater 100% of the time, or maybe there won't be so much. Like, no, it's 50-50. This is a main thing. Obviously there are new underwater mechanics too that make it interesting. I was pretty interested to see that, like, first of all, we only saw traveler swimming, so I had thought like, oh, maybe the swimming thing is kind of a gimmick like fishing, where you can only be the traveler and that's it. But no, you can be anybody. Everybody has swimming animations. What's his name? Fremine, the new character, has like the swimming stamina buff where like you can use, what's it called, like 35% less stamina when you are swimming, and like sprint swimming when you're swimming fast. And then you can also kind of absorb abilities from enemies and things underwater, so you can like interact with things differently. So your kind of your underwater moveset changes.
You're choosing it,
right? It kind of changes as you explore, so that you don't just have the same exact abilities all the time. Because above ground you have the ability to switch characters, but underwater those characters' abilities don't actually matter. So you have to have another way to switch up the exploration. So it seems that they've thought of a lot of things. Oh, with these, like, what are they called? Those currents as well, that let you kind of zoom through the water.
Underwater currents,
right?
Just like speed buffs.
Yeah.
They do have new animations for all the characters, because they have surface level swimming, but now they have specific underwater swimming,
Yes.
which they have applied to all characters. So I think I was earlier under the assumption you would only be able to explore underwater with the traveler, but that of course was just a tech demo. But it's nice to know that they added all the animations for all the characters going forward.
I hope Kokomi's
it shows
really
the
nice.
level of care to it. Kokomi's probably going to be really nice. Before I continue, Sera, is there any like new game technology or systems that they've added in this first part that might interest you?
I mean, like, I was always interested in how they were gonna solve the issue of underwater combat.
Right.
And it turns out that they're actually not gonna solve it. It's simply they are going around the problem, kind of.
Yeah. He mentioned it, right? He said, like...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, no matter how they tried it, it just felt clunky or slow, or like the element system is weird when you're surrounded by hydro, so...
Yeah, that was one aspect of
weighted
it.
animations.
Yeah, exactly. No, but they actually have, I think they actually have physics in their game engine or whatever to make it look realistic when you're inside water.
Mm-hmm.
So they mentioned something about the inertia slowing down movement,
right,
in all combat related like actions. So that wouldn't work. It was just too slow and too clunky. It looked like the combat was in slow motion essentially.
Yeah. So it wouldn't really make sense, and it wouldn't be a great experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm also surprised that the whole underwater thing is not actually a small gimmick for Fontaine. It's actually a huge thing. So as you said, 50% like distribution, 50-50 between overworld exploration on land versus in the water. That's a very even split, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can appreciate the way that they decided to design the like color palette and theme of the underwater exploration. So if you notice that it's extremely bright, extremely colorful, and it makes it look quite harmless, to be honest.
Yep.
It's literally they said something along the lines that they didn't want to induce any phobias or anything like that.
Right.
What if some poor kid now is like suddenly afraid of waters and the deep ocean
because
of some
exactly. Is it thalassophobia or hydrophobia?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
What's it?
I mean, hydrophobia
exactly.
sounds like fear of water, but like
no, it's not fear of water.
It's fear of swimming like under deep water, drowning, right? Like
exactly about the unknown in the bottom of the ocean, right? You never know.
I mean, I pretty much have that, so I'm glad.
Okay.
I'm glad they're not doing that, because
So like, there's no big ugly monster at the bottom waiting for you.
No,
I was kind of hoping.
Look,
actually.
deep sea exploration is scarier to me than space by like a million times. Like
it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. So not only do they have swimming, they also added this new mechanic called Arca. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like ARKHE.
I think Arca.
Yeah,
Arca.
if it's French, maybe it's just arc. You know what I mean? So anyway, so you use it to interfere with mechas, like the robot enemies on like above ground. And so you have these like Ouija, and Numa. They're like two elements. They look kind of like dark and light. And so like some characters have these these properties innately built into their kit supposedly. So like they showed that Linny has one of them and Lynette has a different one. So certain enemies, when you interact with them, they are affected by the type of element of one of these elements that you use on them. So like a shield enemy will stop being able to use his shield because you're interfering with its power source, like that sort of deal. And they haven't explained exactly in depth. Like, you know, the guy was like, oh, I'm getting excited, maybe I shouldn't talk about too much about this or whatever. But the new mechanics, they said they didn't want it to be something, they didn't make it as complicated as the element system, and they also don't intend for it to be a strict advantage, like an inherent always advantage. So I'm really curious how it's going to affect, for example, combat. Like, what if they add these characters to Spiral Abyss and you have to, if you don't use Linny or Lynette or like a Fontaine character to interact with this character?
I was just about to
say
that.
Like, will you have a harder time? Will you, like, it says you won't, there's no damage modifiers or whatever, but maybe it'll make the attack patterns of the boss easier, like if you're using this certain character or something.
That sounds very restrictive, to be honest.
yeah, but you know,
yeah,
think
before
about it, like they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Well, before I share my part, I definitely want to know what Sera thinks. So, what do you think about this new arc damage?
It's not damage. It's not damage. There's no
exactly.
there's no damage modifiers. It doesn't do damage. Like, it's just like when this interacts with this happens.
Or it just in effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I think the characters are either aligned with Usia energy or whatever it's called, and Numa energy or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when either of them attack a special monster, then they trigger some other mode of the monster.
Right.
And I guess it's gonna make them easier to fight. That's the only logical conclusion I can come up with.
Like they sit there for a while not attacking you, or like they don't
maybe
have
something
a shield.
like that.
Yeah, they don't have a shield, so you can just attack them without them blocking, or something. But that could change the speed at which you take them out, right? So
exactly. I mean, like, especially if they have a defensive stance and you trigger it to switch them into a more aggressive or offensive stance, because that's exactly the same concept that we have with the Rift Hounds, actually, the wolves from Inazuma.
Right. They absorb the element, right?
If you, like, there are Geo Wolves and then there are also Electro Wolves. And if you attack them with their corresponding element, they both actually become enraged and become even more aggressive. But in that case, they are also easier to kill.
Right. So, like, stuff like that, like, that's pretty interesting, right? One thing I do want to mention is that it does seem really restrictive that, like, you have to use this character to do this thing or whatever. Like, specifically, but they also, what they showed was the ability to pick up like Oisa block. Like, there was a block that you, like a buff that you just pick up, and then you charge attack something similar to the Dendrogranums in
exactly.
Sumeru.
Yeah.
So any character can utilize the system if they have one of those things near them. So you know, it makes me think that they could use that in different ways, not only for puzzle solving, but also for combat. And then if you happen to have one of these Fontaine characters, they have it built in, so you have a sort of advantage in that sense. But yeah, I had this conversation earlier, actually, on the other podcast, and we were talking about how they have, like, you know, when you first go to Sumeru, or like even when you're first starting the game, if you don't have a lot of characters, you don't have a lot of options. Like, they don't give you a lot of the options. They only give you an option. Like, I heard a lot of people had to switch between, who like didn't get the right characters, had to switch between Animo Traveler and Geo Traveler, because like Animo Traveler is the only Animo character you get guaranteed, right? And then the Geo Traveler is the only one that can make the blocks in order to like hold down pressure plates, if you don't know about Baron Bunny, right? But like the way the game presents it to you is like you use the Geo Traveler to like put a block. So like, and many people kind of only knew it from that way. So, you know, I think they're not afraid to kind of funnel us into like using new characters. And as that character list of usable characters for this mechanic, like as more Fontaine characters come out, as that grows, then I think it'll feel less restrictive. But like, this is the Fontaine thing. We're using Fontaine characters, and they might do this for every region going forward. Like they gave us a literally new element for Sumeru, which is what changed everything. And so now, like, what are they gonna do? They can't add elements, so they're gonna add like augments on top of it, or like existing systems like this alongside of the current elemental system to add depth to not only exploration but possibly to combat. And that's going to depend on what kind of design philosophy they have, like what goals they have for people who are trying to optimize their gameplay, for example, because they did say they don't want this to be like an outright damage advantage sort of deal. They just want you to interact
or element advantage,
right, and they want you to interact. They want you to use it to interact with the enemies differently. So
right,
yeah.
So the thing about this kind of new mechanic is I've experienced this same thing in Destiny 2. They introduced this new type of damage. No, I mean, this is why I like bringing up parallels to other games, because if that other game did something very, very similar and either they succeeded or failed, we should really understand why, because Genshin came out after this game. So in Destiny 2 they introduced this thing called champions, which is very, very similar to this. You could damage the champion. You could do damage. You can actually get their health low. However, when their health gets low, it triggers like some kind of effect, like either enrage or like a shield. And you had to have something called either like unstoppable rounds on your weapons in order to stop them from regenerating their health or stop them from going on a rampage. If you did not have that, you either straight up cannot kill them, or you're just gonna get a longer fight, and it's just not fun at all. So this kind of stuff, it kind of not really triggering, but it reminds me of this time where early on that type of damage was not available on a lot of different weapons or gear. So you were forced to use that even though you had like a really good team or a really good armor build. If you didn't have this one thing, you just were not able to complete that activity.
Right.
In Genshin, just the fact that they allow, from what I can understand, is they allow you to pick up a block nearby, hopefully, that allows you to trigger that effect in the enemy you're fighting. That is good. I hope they keep that. However, my problem is if there's a certain other combat activity where you're like, oh, these blocks aren't available, so you have to use the character that has the arc damage that you need, either Ouija and Minuma. If you do not have that during that specific moment in time during the fight, oh well, the fight's gonna be another 2 minutes longer. So timing is one thing, combat is another, team building is another. So not only do you have to use a certain element, but you also have to have this new damage on your team. It does feel a little restrictive because I have like 10 team slots all full with teams that I like, characters that I like, and if I can't use any of them to fight a boss that clearly wants me to use electro damage, but I also have to have this damage too, I have to build another team. I basically have to clear out one of my team slots, replace it, just for that one fight.
Well, I mean, a lot of those. So first of all, a lot of those fights in those events, like they let you build a team separately from your current team slots for exploration, which is like a totally different thing.
True.
Another thing is like what you're saying, it makes sense. It's definitely like a design thing that you would have to watch out for, as the developers, essentially. But it depends. It depends on what exactly the difference is if you have or do not have this thing, right? So if there is a defensive stance and maybe you can break it with this like new mechanic with the Numa or whatever. You break it and it makes the enemy easier to fight instead of having to he defends all your attacks or whatever. But maybe there's also another alternative way to tackle this enemy. Maybe if you kind of like the robots, like in from Sumeru, like if they're invisible and they go invisible, you can use like Electro and Dendro, I think, or does it, like, how does it work there? Like you can like electrify
it's
them,
a Simon. You need to trigger Quicken.
Yes.
So Dendro and Electro, there you go.
Yeah, so you use Quicken on them to reveal their invisibility, making it way easier to fight them. But it's not impossible to fight them without it, especially if you do enough damage to kill them before they go into like their invisible mode or what have you. So like there's like multiple. I would imagine that since they've already shown that they have the foresight to give you options when fighting certain enemies, that if they add this new mechanic, then they're definitely thinking, okay, well, if they don't have this, then what can they do? Or if they do have this, what can they do? And so maybe that won't be like they've shown us that they do think about these things. So hopefully I hope that what you're saying
I'm
does not come to
optimistic.
pass, because like you're saying,
Yeah.
your game came out before this game, so this game
And I'm just
hasn't done that
worried.
yet. Yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Exactly.
Optimistic but worried.
So but like, you know, let's have a little faith in the Hoyoverse team. I think they're doing pretty well so far. So okay, so that is some of the new mechanics that are mentioned. We also have new characters: Linny, Lynette, and Fremine. So first of all, I love that Linny uses magic cards as kind of his bow attacks, because it makes me think, like, before I was so kind of captivated by Catalyst users because their attacks could be anything and their patterns would be so different, and all of the other weapons are pretty much set. Like, you have a bow, you kind of attack this way. You have a spear, you kind of attack this way. But Linny has shown us that they can be creative with other weapon types as well, and that is what really, really interests me.
I think that happened even earlier. If you think about that, Heizo, he's a catalyst user, but he punches the air, right?
Right. Well, but that's what I was excited about. Is like, catalyst users could be anything, because there's no definition for like what a catalyst is or how it can be used. But a bow is a bow, and you can only shoot a bow by shooting a bow one way. You know what I mean? Like, you can be like Yelan and be really interesting and kick the bow or whatever, but it's kind of limited into like what a bow is. But they've shown that even though this is a bow character who uses a bow, he's using cards instead, and like that's
true. Yeah,
that's super cool. So like you know, like what do you think, Kahi?
So I do like his animations, very flashy. Obviously these are performers. They're going to have flashy moves.
Good point.
Linny is pyro.
Yes.
Linny is pyro. His ability kind of reminds me of Kirara and, you know, Fischl, where he turns into like the cat in the hat, just like
The
running
cat
around.
in the hat.
That's hilarious. Pretty much. But yeah, Linny, I'll be honest, Linny he looks cool. I can't describe it, but he doesn't seem very 5-star to me. Like, he doesn't have like the grand like presentation of a 5-star character, not stuff from what I expect. Like, when I think 5-star character, I think Raiden Shogun, or I think Zhongli.
Well, I think if he had more
style.
sparkles, it'd be maybe more 5-star. Like, but I don't like his bursts.
He just doesn't seem
I don't like the idea of
strong.
like a burst that like restricts you into like going into like a mode like that, where unless it's super powerful, it's gonna feel like, you know, not as good. But if it does that, and then you can have things around it, it's gonna make like Xiangling even better. You know what I mean? Like, this is so ridiculous. Like, the utility of characters who have the ability to do off-field, like Xingqiu and Xiangling and Kaya, like, you just stick those on any like hyper carry on a one of these characters who can transform into a cat box, and then boom, you've got like this whole sort of setup going on where like you just run into stuff. And I don't know, it feels weird to me that
Well, Sera, do you have any like teams in mind when you saw Linny? Do you have like any like character that you really want to pair him up with immediately?
From my point of view, he looked a bit like a pyro Ganyu. So in that case, I think like it would make sense to play him on a melt team.
You know, I watched the video again, where they showed him, and you know, he like does, like, you say pyro Ganyu because like he does like a charge shot and like something comes out of the sky, right?
Exactly, yeah.
That
Or like
that
a taunting
that thing
flower into a
that
cat
thing
in the hat
is
again.
the arc thing. It's like the Ouija block Numa thing.
Okay,
Because-
really? That's
Yeah,
okay,
because I saw him. They were explaining that mechanic. He arrowed the guy with the shield, and then the guy with the shield just took the hit. But then that thing came from above, and it broke his shield.
Okay, but what about the hat at the feet of the enemies?
Yeah, that part I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. There's a box or something like that in front of the enemy as soon as you charge attack them.
So is that? Wait, okay. So wait.
No, we don't know.
We don't know. Okay, yeah, we don't.
I
know
don't
yet.
think.
Yeah. So we don't know what his skill is. Is that like they didn't show us his skill?
No, his skill was he leaves like a cat, like another cat in the hat.
Oh,
taunts.
so that's the thing.
So it's very much like Ganyu. Like, so he's right. Like, it's like a focus point where the enemies are drawn to it. It's kind of like Mona's skill. It's kind of like Amber's Baron Bunny.
Interesting.
It's just an object that draws attention. It's an aggro
He's
tool.
Pyro
which is
Pyro
good.
Ganyu Kirara. Nice.
I have no idea actually.
Yeah, right. But we'll see. It'll be fun.
Good mix of characters. The character that I'm really looking forward to is Lynette.
Same. Yeah.
Because the dash attack, see, when Yelan's skill came out, that was a very unique skill. No other character had that kind of movement and kind of damage. Is like, for Yelan, you use your skill, you hold it, you run into the enemies, and then you either let go of the skill or like activate it again. It instantly pops. So you're applying the skill, you're doing this animation that moves you very, very fast. Lynette does the same thing. It doesn't really mark people, I think, but it does allow her to move through people and then do like an animal attack. So she's animal.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, instantly, like, she can now do swirls. She can be paired with pretty much any other element other than, Dendro or Geo, but like anything that can cause those typical elemental reactions is going to really value Lynette, and she's a 4-star. So I thought they were both going to be the same star levels, but I can't really see a very big difference between 5-star and 4-star Linny and Lynette. They seem very even as far as
I mean, there's
spectacle.
nothing that said
Just-
like Linny is gonna be like a standard banner character or anything like that, right? So
Oh, she's
no,
free.
no, Linny.
She's going to be free. Sorry, oh yeah, Lynette is
Yeah,
the 4-star free
Yeah.
character animal.
because
And
No,
she's a
yeah.
sword, right?
because
No.
Linny seems like he would be
Yeah.
a standard banner character kind of. I kind of get the vibe.
Yeah, as far as like looks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like even his moveset, like we don't really know yet, so it is what it is. But at the same time, it's just like like you said, I get what you're saying about like the 5-star presentation thing, but like like Ningguang is like a 4-star that presents as a 5-star. You know what I'm saying? Like
The opposite
right.
problem.
But yeah, so we have Linny, Lynette, and Freminette. Like so you guys are excited for Lynette. I'm also excited for Lynette, but I personally like Linny. I love magicians. I love cards. Like I love that whole aesthetic. But like I'm a Yoimiya main, so it's like I don't really need another pyro bow user per se, but depending on his playstyle and how it is, then maybe it'll be good. Hey, if he has like a move that buffs pyro damage, boom, he's going on my Yoimiya team. But like we'll see what happens. And so that brings us to the banners. So we have new banners, Linny and Yelan, and then we have Lynette as the featured 4-star, and then we have Zhongli Child and Freminette as the featured 4-star, who we probably want for exploration because he lets us swim way faster, or he lets us swim longer. So I think I'm gonna enjoy that. Oh, okay. So real quick, I just before we talk about banners, I just remembered what I wanted to mention before with the swimming. So there is no breathing mechanic. There's no water limit mechanic
right,
that like
yes.
there
Thank
is in
God.
Dragon Spine. Yeah, so funny because I just got off a podcast with Subutai, and he was like, he loves Dragon Spine and he loves that frost mechanic that makes you feel a pressure when you're exploring. So he's like, he wishes there was a breathing mechanic in Fontaine, and I was like, bro, you are crazy. Like, he's like, I don't know, maybe I'm a masochist or something, but like basically I'm really glad that there's not a breathing mechanic because I would like to chill and explore and enjoy the scenery and all this stuff. So like I wanted to ask like how you guys feel about that as well. So Kahi, what about you?
I appreciate the fact that they look at other games, the oxygen bar, as restrictive, because it shows where their focus is. They want the game to be fun, or at least enjoyable in an exploration sense. So
They want to be chill.
there's no real need to have. Yeah, they don't need to have a breathing mechanic just for the sake of realism. It's a stylized gacha game with like anime characters. Like, it doesn't need to have a heightened sense of realism. I know they have physics, but they don't. I mean, in a world of like magic, they don't need to have like oxygen be the restricting factor of exploration. So they said, we don't need it. We'll just have like a spirit guiding you.
I'm not
That's
gonna
fine.
lie, it's kind of weird to me even that the fact that like cryo vision users and pyro vision users are even affected by Dragon Spine at all, because you would think cryo vision users are not cold when it comes to like being in the cold. Like they're used to ice, like where they're cold from their own abilities, and then like pyro vision users like can heat themselves up anytime. So like I used to do that. Like I would like be Shangling and like throw down Goba and stand in front of it, and I was like, this doesn't warm me up. What the heck? So what about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm on your team, I guess. It's much better. I really think it would be annoying if we would have a like oxygen bar or something like that. Especially since the underwater exploration is just it's way too pretty to be wasted on such mechanic. I mean, like, it would make me feel irritated exploring the whole region. I don't know if you played Zelda,
Yep.
the latest one.
Yep.
So you know about the underground exploration.
Right.
Yeah, that one is annoying for me. I mean,
Yeah.
like the whole area is hostile and like
The darkness.
that feels exactly. And it's not like you have a timer or anything like that, but everything is trying to kill you, and you have to be careful, and you have to move from station to station, and that's the
Yeah.
point, right?
Yep.
In Dragonspine, that was moving from one heat source to another one.
Right.
In Fontaine, in theory, that would be like moving from one
An
oxygen
air
source
bubble,
to another
yeah,
one.
like
Exactly.
Cave or air bubble
Yeah.
or something.
No, that's not for me. That's too
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the appeal
Well-
in the mechanic and the survivability, but I also feel that it kind of weirdly is out of place in Genshin. So yeah.
Well, for me, I know this is like a moot point. I mean, it's not going to happen anyways. But you know, in Dragonspine, you could supplement that by having a pyro character, like have either pyro shield or light something on fire, and you create your own heat source. I mean, I'm glad they're not needing to do this anyways, but you had like an animal character underwater create like an air bubble. They could have done that, but then that's way too restrictive. You have to have an animal character to breathe. So they just could have added that,
Yeah.
but they just
I'm
chose not
sure
to do
they
that.
thought of
They
it.
just chose not to do complicated
Right.
stuff.
But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to mention that because that is like a big thing that a lot of people were worried about before they revealed the actual mechanics. So back to the banners. Like earlier, Sarah, you said you don't have Child and Zhongli. Like of these banners, like okay, first of all, are you going for more Yelan constellations? I don't know how many constellations you have, but I
No,
know
of
you
course
love
not.
Yelan. Like, you have what, C1 Yelan?
No, I have C0. I mean, like I'm a
Oh, C0.
horizontal type player.
Right. Have all
So,
the characters, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's more fun for me to just have more characters and have more available strategies to pick from.
Right.
And that is fun to me, to be able to craft and combine
Same.
different units together and fool
Yep.
around with new type of rotations and whatnot. But the issue is, of course, that Genshin has always been a game where they have favored vertical investment accounts. So having Constellation actually makes your life much easier. Then you don't even need to farm for artifacts. But all right, now I compensate this issue by farming artifacts, right? So no. So Yelan C0, that's good enough for me. But if you want the opinion of a meta slave, like what should I do in order to fully clear Abyss? I would say go for Yelan, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but I already have Yelan. I'm not pulling on that banner unless Lunny somehow surprises me, right?
Right. Like
But
his
for
kid.
Zhongli and Child, that banner is kind of evil because most people already own those 2 5-stars already.
Right.
And so they purposely just put
With,
the
because
Fremenate.
they're like, you want the new 4-star? Well, you're gonna have
Exactly,
to go for a 5-star
exactly.
you already have.
Yeah, but okay, in my case, I actually don't own either of them, so that's a win for me, so to speak. And
Oh, yeah,
most likely,
exactly.
I think I'm going for Zhongli because I want to play Melt Ganyu more, and Melt Ganyu is so painful without Shielder.
Oh yeah, and Zhongli's shield is just too good. Like I
It
have
is
a
the best
feeling
shield.
They will never make a shield better than Zhongli's because
No, they
would,
can't.
They
yeah.
would make him not useful anymore. So like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's what 12 seconds?
Oh, it should be longer than that, right?
16?
That's the cooldown.
I don't think it's 20. I think it's like.
The thing that matters is that he has 100% uptime on the shield. I mean, like
Oh right, yeah.
the cooldown is shorter than the duration. There's no way you can lose the
That's
shield.
That's true. I just like testing it, like
Yeah.
seeing how far it can go without like doing it. Well, I mean, it'll break, if you just like really face tank stuff, like it will actually break.
Exactly.
But not if he's built up pretty well.
Mm,
But but yeah, obviously as a Yoimi main, I use it a lot. So, okay. So Kahi, are you going to be pulling on any of these banners?
Well, I have Yelan, I have Zhongli, I do not have Child, so that means I am not going to be pulling on any of the banners. So, nothing against Child. I mean,
Oh
dude,
my-
like I like
Man,
Child's
not even
playstyle.
for like more
just don't like
Lynette
Child.
constellations.
Nah, well, I'm gonna get Lynette for free anyway, so I'm like Sera, like having the character themselves is already a game changer. Having more versions of the character, I mean, it may make it easier. It doesn't necessarily change up your whole play style, but like I like being able to form a cool, fun thematic team. Like I have 10 teams. They're all full. They all have names. They all have like reasons why. They all aesthetically look like they actually would play together. Yeah, I'm just focused on getting the character. If I had to have a Hydro character, I have Yelan.
So you're not gonna go for Freminate then? Like you wouldn't go for Child and Freminate on that banner, like and roll until you get Freminate, possibly get Child?
Nah, I mean, no. I see Freminate as like Cryo Greatsword or Claymore user. That's basically Chongyun. I have Chongyun.
Exactly.
Chongyun looks cooler. So yeah, I don't feel like the need to pull on these characters, especially knowing full well that we have other Fontaine characters like the Hydro Archon. You have Clorinda, you have Navia, which aesthetically look a lot better than Child. So I would probably be saving for them. If anything, I would probably roll just a couple on the first phase to get maybe some Lynette constellations. Because again, if I'm getting Lynette for free, I might as well make her a little bit more powerful if I had to build Pidgeot or something. So
good.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna. Yeah, I'm not really gonna be playing on this first phase. I'm just gonna see, okay, how can I go out through the game with just the characters I have? I'm still trying to upgrade my current ones. But
it's so funny because Kahi, you're saying all this, and Sera's like, agree, I agree. But it's like Sera's like talking meta perspective, but Kahi's talking like aesthetics.
Yeah,
just having every character like
not.
They line up.
No, it's really both. I mean, like if you think about it, you have C0 Yelan right now, right? Okay, so the thing with C1 Yelan is that it's actually a big deal. Wait, do you have C1 or not?
I have C0.
You have C1 Yelan. Perfect. So the thing is that when you get C1 Yelan, you get 2 charges of your E, right? So that changes the way you explore the game because you will never ever sprint again. So you're gonna press E for the full duration and you're gonna press E again, and by the time you've done 2 E's in a row, your cooldown is up again. So you're just gonna keep on spamming E while running around the world, so to speak. So it's really good from a world exploration point of view, so to speak. And as for Lynette, so to speak, we know that MiHoYo has a trend recently that they push the most important constellation to C6. So if you just look at something like Farazan or something like that, so there is a high risk or a high chance that Lynette will actually be cracked by the time she reaches C6. So maybe she will, I don't know, maybe she might be able to compete with even Sucrose and Kazuha that we traditionally think is like extremely OP and broken.
So we have to see.
I think, so
yeah, exactly.
Who is animal character, high constellation? I think, Zhao. So Zhao gets like 3 charges of his
C1
E ability, and when he does like a dive, he can just use his skill like almost unlimited times. Like it instantly resets the cooldown. Was that a C6?
Right. Wait, was that?
Yeah.
Was that C6, Sera? Like where Xiao?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, I don't know his constellations
like
by heart.
C6. It sounds like a
but
C6
he
thing.
can spam his E by the time he gets C6. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, or like Child C6 is like infinite blades, like infinite swords, where you like, as long as you use your burst while you're in sword mode, then you get your cooldown is instantly refunded when you switch back to bow. So you can just like, you can stay on the water blades forever.
Yeah, that's a bit of a meme because usually you want to rotate.
Yeah, it only makes sense for like co-op or something. It doesn't really make sense
exactly.
Yeah, for like normal gameplay, but so those banners are pretty interesting. I think I'll probably, like, my whole thing is trying to get every character. So like you said, I have Zhongli and Child already. I'll try to get Freminate. I don't know who I'll go for C1. Probably C1 Zhongli, so I can do 2 pillars, because why not? But I don't remember what Child's is. I'll have to check it out. And then for Linny, I will go for Linny and hopefully get some Lynettes on the way. But since we're getting 1 anyway, I will not try to purposely roll the banner for the 4-star if I don't have to. Like for Freminate, like I remember your comment on the Discord, like he doesn't look very meta. And I kind of agree,
doesn't.
but like we don't even know like what kind of buffs does he give, what does he do, right? Like
Okay,
So,
but you saw in the trailer, he infuses his claymore with cryo infusion.
Yeah.
It's literally
it's
Chongyun, but
yeah.
for himself.
Yeah, I don't know what that's supposed to be like. So there has to be some other sort of benefit, because there's no way they would just like put out like weak Chongyun as a character. That makes no sense to me. So there's got to be some more to it, right? Because like you look at Mika too, and you're like, what the heck is this guy? Like, you know what I mean? Like he has, and then like, but then you see his buffs and like what it does, and you're like, oh, okay, so I see where this can be used now. But so Freminet, I don't know, but just trying to get every character, so hopefully I'll be able to without spending too many Primo Gems. But I'm okay missing Freminet also. If I just spend a couple Primo Gems and I'm like, I just want to save up for the next banner. It's sort of what I did with Mika. I just didn't pull, and then I got Mika like 5 months later or something like that. So, you know, it was weird not having a character, but at the same time, it's not a big deal, unless he's really good. So we have those banners, and then we have the new forgeable weapons and battle pass weapons. Okay, so we have finally new battle pass weapons. Oh my god, like I didn't even realize. I was like starting to forget just the fact that like we have the same weapons on this thing over and over again, and I'm just trying to like figure out which ones I'm gonna R5 next. You know what I mean? Like there's no like, because I always get the battle pass. So it's a really weird thing, but we don't know any of their actual descriptions yet, so it's kind of hard to be excited about it because we don't know what kind of weapons there are. So hopefully some really game-changing or some really fun ones, because like Viridescent Hunt is still a pretty interesting weapon if you think about it, like how it makes the little wind pull thing.
It is. It's a fun weapon.
Absolutely amazing. On Farazan especially, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, I use it on Child, which is great because like while you're using the water blades, it still works. So like it pulls people in together while you're doing water blades. And then, so we also have new artifact sets, which I don't remember if they announced it, but we'll kind of go deeper in that, like what those are as we get more information. And then the quality of life changes, guys. So, underground map, like I mentioned earlier, they're going to have the layered map similar to in the interactive map that they have on the HoYoLab app. You're going to have the ability to spectate TCG matches as well. The underground map thing, by the way, it applies retroactively to like Sumeru and stuff. I don't know how it applies to other areas of the map, but they've showed for sure that it shows Sumeru and Fontaine. And the TCG thing, as far as we know, we don't know any details about it, but assumably if you spectate your friend, you see their exact perspective, so you don't see the enemy's cards. But maybe they'll do something like in Hearthstone or other card games where if you know both of the people playing and you spectate both of them, you can see both of their hands at the same time, which would be really good for like tournaments and things like that. And the last thing, which I think is arguably the most important thing, which is the party screen polish that they have added to the game when you select characters.
This looks cool.
And
I like this.
This is gonna be Kahi's favorite thing ever. You can already tell. Like it's all about aesthetics. Literally no actual change to gameplay. It is just polish, and it is like every character now when you're selecting through them in the select screen has like a little unique animation to that character, which is really cool. Like Hu Tao brings out the ghost, Xiangling brings out Guoba. There's like a bunch of cool things that happen with different characters, and on top of that, wherever you open the party setup screen, the background of the setup screen changes to match the aesthetic of wherever you are. So they showed like a night sky sort of area, sort of like sunset beach-ish-esque thing. I don't know. It was kind of hard to explain, but basically they match the colors and maybe the landscape a little bit of wherever you are and time of day, I believe. So it is very, very nice. It's going to feel very nice to people coming into the game that are brand new. But for us who, like, for example, I have all the characters, I'm just going to be sitting there for hours looking at all the characters' animations and trying to find different backgrounds that I can load.
Yeah, same.
So exciting. But, like, this is the kind of thing that, like, this makes a big difference, you know? New animated wallpapers. This makes a big difference, right? Like, even though it's just aesthetic, it makes your game feel more alive, which is like my favorite thing about it. Because if you think about it, people are gonna go back and compare the old character select screen to this one, and it's like it's dead. Like the current one is like they just pop.
Yeah,
pop,
it's
pop,
so boring.
Pop. Yeah, it's really boring. Not to mention it's like kind of confusing because like when you're selecting a character, you have to press like level up or like confirm. Like there's no like actual confirm button. Like it's like half the menu is there and half the menu isn't. I don't know if you've ever realized that, but it's like a weird thing. Anyway, so that is something I'm really excited about. I think we're all really excited about it. And yeah, is there anything you guys want to mention before we haven't really talked about story, which I think is fine because the story we will talk about more as it comes out. Right now we've just seen a lot of interesting situations. We heard about the champion duelist and like all this stuff, but these are all concepts. They're just kind of lightly brought to us, and we're going to figure out more about them as we play through the story. Oh, they did mention 4.0, 4.1, 4.2 are all going to have Archon quests, so we're going to be able to like play through the story much quicker this time, and so there'll be less lulls in this section. So whether or not they're trying to like mismatch the timing with like Honkai Star Rail story patches or what have you, but like I'm really excited that I'll be able to like load up every 0.1, 0.2 patch and like have actual story to go to, because the story is supposed to be getting really good. So what do you guys have anything else you want to mention about the live stream before we move on? Kahi, what about you?
The craftable weapons, keep in mind, I love the aesthetics first of all, but also anytime you are leveling up those weapons, they are going to have, I guess, an ascended look as well. So they may glow different, they may change color, it may be dramatic, it may not be, but I'm actually really looking forward to those craftable weapons, because Inazuma had some really great craftable weapons, but Sumeru didn't. I couldn't really find a team that could use those weapons, and they look cool, but I didn't bother to craft them because I just had even like the free weapons, even the weapons you get from like Battle Pass, were actually a lot better in certain cases, or just looks cooler. I really liked how they look, so I'm really hoping they have a good useful effect, because I know like every cryo character that I have could definitely use a glow up, especially for those. Sera, anything that you're looking forward to?
I mean, like, not for me specifically, but at least I'm happy for the, beginner players that are gonna start playing Genshin, because as soon as you finish the Mondstadt Archon quest, I believe that they're gonna get the automatic instant access to some kind of waypoint somewhere in Sumeru, right? That they can, like, it will make the traveling and exploration much easier for them, especially if they happen to, let's say, pull one such character that needs the ascension materials. That's such a pet peeve of mine, that in Genshin, if you're a beginner and if you pull the wrong unit, you will have to wait like months upon months before you can even upgrade that character.
Yeah, actually we mentioned this in the last podcast I was in too. It's really funny because I didn't know about this specifically, but apparently, for the advertising for Inazuma, they it was like, oh, it's like the Japan area of Genshin. It's gonna be so exciting, and so they paid like content creators to play the game. And many people were expecting to be able to go to Inazuma, but they couldn't, because you have to go through the entire story up to Liyue before you can even go to Inazuma. So you know what I mean? Like, so this
Epic
works.
Fail.
This works with advertising. Like, if someone sees Fontaine advertising and they're like, I want to go there, I want to swim. You know what I mean? Like,
that will work. Yeah.
Then that's really good. They can just go there. Like, they won't be able to do the story, but they can explore, right? And that's part of Genshin's thing,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting, because imagine being a content creator, be like, guys, I'm gonna play Inazuma tomorrow. It's my first time playing Genshin Impact ever, and you start and you're just like, oh my god, I can't even leave Mondstadt. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's Mondstadt is obviously doable within a couple hours. Like, I think it's not. I guess not a couple hours. Like, it's like a good
day one, maybe.
Yeah, day one, the end of day one, beginning of day two, sort of like you can finish it. But then you have access to the rest of the world, and so having to get all the way, you literally cannot go to Inazuma, and that makes sense considering Inazuma is supposed to be isolated. So lore wise it makes sense, but it was a bad move marketing wise. To be able to advertise Inazuma, it's really difficult because people can't go there for a while. But Sumeru, you can just like accidentally walk into Sumeru while exploring, and looking at the way that they introduced where you'd be able to enter Fontaine from, which is the desert of the realm of Faraket at the top left part of the Sumeru desert. It looks like it's going to be like a little path that goes to the upwards, like to the northeast, and assumably above Sumeru, above Liyue, and on the left of Mondstadt, it's still going to be blocked off. But then there's just going to be like Fontaine, like a strip of Fontaine, like in the middle of nowhere. And if that's the case, then that means that you have to go through the Realm of Fireket to get to Fontaine, and they're going to give you the first waypoint. But you cannot accidentally get to Fontaine unless you get to that waypoint, is what it feels like, at least at the beginning, until they open up the map more. So
Exactly.
I'm really curious, because we enter from all the way on the other side of Sumeru, but they said in the live stream that Fontaine's neighboring country was Mondstadt, and that the vegetation was actually, you can tell from the vegetation that they're like they're close to Mondstadt's region. And so how is Fontaine close to Mondstadt if you're entering Fontaine from all the way on the other side of the desert? So like I'm assuming it's going to be like a long strip that builds out.
There's what they explained was how to get to, or not how to get to, but how Fontaine is situated. It's actually, their entire tectonic plate is actually lifted up like 100 or 300 meters up.
Right.
And that's why there's a constant like waterfall, because apparently there's some magical source in Fontaine that lets there be a consistent water flow. But also that's kind of clever from a lore-wise or explanation of why we couldn't see any part of Fontaine, even though they're kind of right there or above that region or part of Mondstadt. Because, I mean, if you look out to the ocean and you see like a 300-meter high water wall, it just looks blue. So I guess it kind of makes sense, like, oh, we couldn't see it until now because, we didn't have the ability to go there and actually get close up to the structures where it leads us up. It's a big elevator. All the boats have like a little port with a really large structure that people land and then just walk or go right up, and then they get into Fontaine. So
4.0 live stream, let us know what you're excited for. Let us know in the comments. Come into the Discord and chat about it. There's so much stuff to look forward to, and there was actually a developer blog that they had really recently as well that explained that they are working on other things like artifact swapping sets and things for like your inventory and more management stuff, more quality of life interface based stuff, which I think we're really excited for, especially when you kind of sit down and compare it to Honkai Star Rail. There's a lot of stuff that they have that we don't have, that we would like and that we've been asking for. So we'll see if that goes well in the future updates. So let's get to the second main part of our topic today, which is the Spiral Abyss and the endgame of Genshin Impact. So Spiral Abyss, for those of you that don't know, is a separate mode that you can get to pretty early in the game, and it's a challenge of different fights. And so this challenge is really interesting. What it is you go up the Spiral Abyss. You have some challenging levels that get more and more difficult as you go on. It's intended to be started early, but then as your account levels up, as you learn more about the game, as you get more characters and build up your equipment, you can start clearing each level. It's like a big tower. And for the first 8, that's like the main challenge. You will actually unlock some characters. So you'll see at the beginning that you can unlock Xiangling by clearing, I believe, floor 3. So you clear all 8 levels, and then you unlock the remaining 4 levels, floors 9 through 12. And the interesting thing is, floors 9 through 12 actually reset every 6 weeks or so. And there's a challenge associated with being able to clear this really difficult content. And I say really difficult because you need to have your characters matching the types of elements that are good against the enemies. You have to have equipment that is properly leveled up. Your characters need to be in a specific strength level to be able to tackle clearing this content within a certain amount of time. Because the challenge is, of course, if you clear the content, that's good, and you can get some rewards if you clear within a certain time. But the real challenge is getting it within, I believe that at the most difficult level, you have to clear, You have to clear these areas within 3 minutes, right?
Exactly. Okay, but regarding the previous point you said, I mean, like, the Abyss resets every 16th day, so it's like on the 1st and 16th every month.
Right.
But the monster swaps out every 6 weeks or so.
Right.
So it's a difference between Abyss reset versus monster monster lineup change up, or I don't know how to differentiate between them.
Oh, I think it's
It's fine, maybe.
It's fine. Yeah, because
okay,
like I'm explaining it to people who don't know what it is, right?
Exactly, they will understand. It's good.
So okay, so this is basically the most end game content we have, because there's nothing else in the game that challenges your level of power the way that this event does. And I say event, but it's actually always there. And so, recently we also got an event called Perilous Expedition, which is structured very similarly to Spiral Abyss, where you have a limited amount of time to challenge really difficult enemies. And, so we may sprinkle that into the conversation, but basically what we want to talk about is, after you've beaten Genshin, after you've done the stories, after you've done the exploration, what is there left to do? And Spiral Abyss is basically the only real answer we have right now, other than just kind of, hang around and enjoy the world. Something to build towards. So Sera, Sera is actually someone who in the community helps people with getting their accounts ready and their strategies ready for Spiral Abyss. So Sera, can you tell us a little bit about what you do to help the community in terms of Spiral Abyss?
Well, so usually it's about questions regarding their builds, questions on how to form a team and stuff like that. Usually people don't even know what to play, so to speak, on a certain floor. So let's say you have a monster list, right? And then you see that there are certain requirements on your team, that there are certain elemental shields that need to be broken, and that's your constraints basically. You now know the design criteria for the team that you're drafting. But the issue is still that you don't exactly know what will work and what will not work exactly, unless you have played it before or unless you have been experimenting a lot. And usually, as soon as Abyss drops, I clear it, usually using my strongest team and stuff like that. But then I usually replay it to fool around. I like to try out new characters, new team compositions, and eventually I get a good image on what will work and what will not work. And that's kind of how it works for me when I give advice. I must have at least seen it or tried it at least once to be sure that, okay, this will work for you, and this is how you would, let's say, rotate the team. These are the buttons you press, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't realize that not only is it building up your characters and having the right characters to match the enemies, but also how you use those characters. When you time switching characters, which abilities you use in what order, taking advantage of and keeping in mind any weapon effects, artifact set effects, and as well as buffs in the actual Spiral Abyss. So
yeah, exactly.
So it's really difficult for a lot of people, and we really appreciate people, I mean me included, but the community also really appreciates that you are able to kind of give this advice and to help us out. And that is fun for you, because
of course.
And sometimes when people are really having difficulty, you kind of jump in and if someone is willing, you will log into their account, try Spiral Abyss yourself, and then kind of prove whether or not their account can handle Spiral Abyss based on the best of your ability, right?
Exactly, that's the issue. Many people, they try to bang their heads against certain stages of the Abyss, and they don't even know if their account theoretically could actually clear it in time. And I don't know what their skill level is, so sometimes I offer okay, if I can't do this, there's no way you will be able to do this.
Yeah.
If you think that I'm a good player, so to speak. So that's something that I try to do to help, but also to be able to show what kind of rotation you should go for, or what rotation that works for your, let's say, account and team composition. So
right.
It depends a bit on the energies of your characters. Sometimes you don't have the proper amount in order to burst every rotation, and then it actually changes up how you play the game. This energy funneling technique where you
right.
use skill on Bennett, swap into Xiangling, give Xiangling the particles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Casual players don't do that, right?
Yeah, they don't even think about that. Yeah.
Exactly, but eventually you can pick it up. If I show it to you once, then then okay, that's how I play it. Then
right.
All of these skill stuff can be learned eventually.
Yeah. So yeah, and for those wondering about account sharing, we actually contacted Hoyoverse about this, because there are a lot of content creators that allow using someone else's account on their streams. Like for example, someone says like, "Oh, can you pull on my account, like wish on my account on stream?" And like, okay, and then they give their account information to the streamer. The streamer logs in, and then they go wish for them. But there's always the potential of that streamer, not that anybody would do this, but the streamer might go in and start deleting stuff or trashing, really important artifacts or weapons, or, just destroying someone's account. And, that's the fear. And so like, basically I contacted Hoiverse to make sure that this was like okay with terms of service. And, they actually said that, in any case, if you are the one giving out your account information, then you just need to understand that you're putting your account at risk, and that it is totally your responsibility for what happens to your account if you are the one that gives away that information. So just, for those of you that are wondering, because I'm sure some of you are curious out there, like is it okay that there's a lot of streamers doing this? It is okay as long as the account owner is okay with sharing their information. So just FYI, that's how it works. Now, and one thing that's interesting about that is, especially for you, Sera, like someone who likes to challenge themselves with the Abyss and like different kinds of like team compositions or weapon combinations or what have you. Is it like what is fun about it for you? Like, what is fun about the Abyss for you?
So as I said, the first thing you do in the Abyss before you even start playing the game, so to speak, is the planning phase, right? At least I think it's really fun to look at the monster list for Abyss and then craft 2 teams. Usually need to break some kind of shield, as I said before. And at least for the current Abyss, the first half really favors, let's say, the Hydro element, because you have the Pyrolecture, right? The shield that you need to break. And in the second half, you have something like a Electro shield that you need to break. And that's a quite standard setup, that you have 1 shield each in both halves that you need to think about. And based on that, you suggest some teams that might or might not work. And then it's up to you to like experiment and find out if it actually works. And most of the time, we know how MiHoYo designs their game. So far, they've been quite lenient and they're quite nice about it. I mean, like, they're never that restrictive. So usually there are more viable combinations of teams than you would think. So it's more about actually finding them and trying it out, simply.
Right. So,
and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
but
go for it.
Okay, so another part of the fun factor about Abyss is the actual execution phase, right? So we have the planning phase where you have to actually draft the team, and in the execution phase where you actually play the team that you draft. I mean, like, there will always be a proper optimal rotation for whatever team that you play. There is a certain order to the button presses, essentially. And at least I think that it's really satisfying when you learn how to rotate your team properly. So you will definitely know when you're playing your team correctly, because it feels like there's no downtime and the combat becomes really smooth. But of course, not everyone knows how to do this.
Right.
And as I said before, like, one common issue is that many players don't know that that you're supposed to seamlessly rotate your team, that you're supposed to switch back and forth, and eventually basically have no downtime. And the issue that they usually face is the energy issue, right?
Right.
So there's no second rotation. So the Genshin community usually underrates the importance of ER. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So and I know that, like, for example, if someone's like, "Oh, my account, I don't know if I can do this," it's like really interesting to like use other people's accounts and kind of put the puzzle pieces together to figure out, like, okay, well, what has this person invested in? And like most of the time they don't even know, right? Like, they just kind of pick their favorites. They just like happen to get a good thing. Maybe they read a guide once, but they're not really thinking about their account in terms of Spiral Abyss. But some people actually have really powerful accounts that they just don't realize their powers kind of spread all over the place, right?
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
really
I think that's a good point you make, that the fact that every account is different and every player are in different situations or have their own circumstances.
Right.
So it really makes these recommendations really difficult, or it can usually be quite specific for each person. Like
Yeah.
for certain people, it makes no sense to force them into a meta team composition,
Right.
simply because the investment level is not there. So something that is supposed to be suboptimal turns out to be actually better.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting part about it. Like trying to think about, like, you have to keep the meta in mind, but you can't default to the meta if, like, you know,
Exactly.
nobody like my wife's account doesn't have Bennett like leveled up. I mean, like, what, you know, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, so like stuff like that, and it's really fun because like I find that part fun too. Like, I'm not as like meta heavy as you in terms of what is optimal, but I will try to find optimal with what I have. And I think that part is really fun to me. And now my account is a mess because I have every character. So
yeah, that's right.
And they're all leveled sort of very horizontally. Like there's
exactly, yeah.
There's no clear winners in terms of power, other than maybe like Yoimiya or something. And like, you know, sometimes I find it more challenging because I have the right meta team, but I don't have the right investment. And so having to find like a different like way to maneuver through Spiral Abyss using what I do have is I think really interesting. So
yeah,
I do have a question,
for people who
for Sera.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I have a question. So, Sera, of all the teams that you've played and experimented with, what team composition do you feel like was the weirdest but worked? Like, looking at the team members, like, they shouldn't work, but then you played with them in this particular combination, and it worked. What was the weirdest one you've played with?
Oof, okay. Basically, okay, meme teams or troll teams. I think
Pretty much, yeah.
Like, what's a meme
Yeah,
team? Like, what is a meme team or a troll team?
I mean, like, I think that playing Candice is fun. I always want to find a way to play Candice, right?
Yes, I agree.
She's a bit weak in the current meta, but there are ways to make her work, kind of. So the way I play Candice, at least, is to use her for infusion for Yao Yao, and then you create blooms that way.
Nice.
And then it's up to you whether you want to extend that to like Nahida Nilo bloom. That would make it extremely meta, actually, but still not as good as the optimal choice, which would be like something like Kole, Kirara, or Kokomi, right?
Right.
But still, it's very fun to be able to use Candice, to use her ultimate, to use her E, and then swap to Yao Yao, use ultimate on her, and then just whack everyone with normal attacks. That's so much fun. But yeah, I have, like, there are certain teams that I haven't tried myself, but that looks extremely fun, that I have been planning to build up eventually. So there are like people in the Discord channel, Amber Mains, and they do all day is to pop these bunny, what's it called? The
Baron Bunny.
Baron bunnies, right?
Yeah.
And then they essentially pre-apply cryo, and then melt the Baron bunny.
Yep.
And that deals up to like 100 to 200k damage. And there are plenty of Amber main clears online on YouTube, and that actually impresses me so much when I see that.
There you go.
So those are like
possible.
the true meme teams. It is, but at the same time, it is a bit, let's say, misleading. So you might think it's all skill, which is partly true. Skill plays a big role on it, but something else that doesn't get as highlighted as much for why certain people have really easy time clearing the abyss, let's say in my case, and for some other people it's like a real struggle. So from my point of view, something that we don't speak so much is about like your resin habits. So the issue is that whenever someone does something impressive, the first thing we ask is, okay, how much money did you spend? All right, you're free to play. Okay, but how long did you pay for? But even then, it doesn't really make sense. You could have been a day one player, but if you don't spend resin every day, your account is probably going to be quite weak anyways.
Right.
So that's a quite, I mean, like, I've seen so many accounts on so many people that are like supposedly day one player or something like that. And they don't have so many level 90 characters. They don't have so many level 90 weapons. It's always 80 or something like that, right?
Weird.
And then they also don't have level 9 talents, let's say, if 10 is max without constellations. It's usually like they stop at 6 or 8 or something like that. But from each and every part of those, if you push from level 80 to 90, you get like 5 to 10% damage boost.
Right.
And same thing goes for weapon. You increase the weapon level from 80 to 90. That's also something like 5 to 10.
I feel like I remember early people telling other people to not level to 90.
That was true in the first year of Genshin, because
Right.
you had to be conscious of your resource management.
Right.
But at some point, when you have played the game for so long, what do you do with your resin?
Right.
And most likely for people that really struggle in the abyss, you don't spend your resin, you don't try to burn it every day or something like that, or you're just spreading it out really thin, like in your case a bit, like you're very, very horizontal,
Right.
Based on what I have seen. So you basically have so many characters that are so high level, it's insane.
Yeah, I have so many characters that are high level, but none of them are optimized, so like they don't do what they need to do enough for me to clear easily. Yeah. So it's really weird.
Yeah. It's not only about level 90 characters, level 90 weapons, and level 9 talents out of 10. I've also seen like people that don't even realize that they don't actually have level 20 artifacts on each and every character. So you need literally level 20 artifacts on all 8 characters. And most people don't have that. They stop at 16 or something like that, or sometimes even 12, right?
Uh-huh.
And people tend to forget to check these things, or they just go into the abyss thinking that, I have C2, it should be fine, right? But no, like the total power of your account is more than the constellations that you pull. So even if you put money into the game, there's no guarantee that you will actually clear the abyss. And that's the funny thing, that they need to think about their resin habits or resin usage to use it more efficiently, or just start using it more and more,
or start paying
towards the correct things. Yeah.
Pay for resin.
Okay, there are resin giga whales.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. That's one way. Some people do that.
It's so crazy because like the end game preparation, like for Spiral Abyss, which is like farming artifact sets, is like kind of just up to chance, right? So
it is RNG. It is RNG based. But okay, so the more you spend over long stretches of time, you are guaranteed to get something good at least. Even though you might not be like top tier, get the best one.
Maybe it's
whatever.
not like the perfect 4 stats rolled perfectly the way you wanted, but like it's like you get the right main stat, you get maybe like 2 good substats, like, and then you're pretty much able to compete, right?
Exactly.
So
that's right.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. So what do you think about Spiral Abyss now? So like compared to, you mentioned like the beginning of the game, playing as day 1, like how, like what has improved about Spiral Abyss, or how has it changed since the beginning?
The history of Abyss is a long one. Let's put it like that. I mean, like it has changed many times throughout the years,
right?
And it has been kind of redesigned many times throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say from the very beginning, back in late 2020 and early 2021 or something like that, the Abyss was actually not very boss centric as it is today, kind of.
Right.
We always had enemies, like we have waves of smaller enemies, right?
Right.
And in this type of meta, you know who completely dominated
Venti.
the Abyss? It was Venti, right?
Yeah.
We used to say that he completely trivialized the whole Abyss. Like 36 stars was not really that impressive. As soon as you had Venti, then you could just press one button and watch everything die. It was so broken. It was so OP, right?
Right.
And during this time, it was also the peak of a certain meta team that was invented in China, actually. Do you know which team I'm talking about? A team that abuses Venti's true power.
Oh.
That is very meta, that everyone played.
It sounds really
in the
familiar,
beginning.
But no.
Okay. It's the Morgana team composition.
Oh, yes.
So, yes,
Morgana.
every meta slave was playing it. It was so broken. So it consists of Ganyu, Mona, Venti, and Diona. So the idea is so simple. It's a freeze team. Venti groups up everyone, and then Mona uses her ult. And her ult can actually be manipulated. It's based on the position of the enemies. But if all enemies are clumped up in the black hole of Venti, then Ganyu's ult will actually focus fire everyone in the middle of the black hole. And that's so broken. And Mihoyo, of course, realized that the Abyss had become way too easy, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we eventually shifted to a way more boss-centric Abyss, where the enemies cannot be lifted.
Right.
So we started needing like more single target damage and stuff like that. So that was the counter of Venti. That was also the fall of Venti. He was the first one to break the Abyss, but he was also kind of the first one to initiate a redesign of the Abyss.
So interesting.
Yeah, it was like an indirect nerf, because in a gacha game you can't really nerf a character, right?
Right. You just make
You
the
know
whole
what's
game.
hilarious
You bounce the
about
whole game
this?
around them.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because after Venti, when this problem, started to go away, when Abyss had started to have stronger enemies, you know who they came out with? Zhongli.
Okay, that's the next part. That's so true. So Zhongli also broke the game in a different way. I mean, like, he was strong when he was released, right?
Right.
But
not
there
as
was a
strong
certain
now.
no, but there was a community outrage that he was weak because he's the representative of Leeway. He should be strong, right? And okay, whatever. That outrage caused MiHoYo to actually give in for the first time. And I don't think they are gonna give in ever again. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, they buffed Zhongli so much that his shield became so strong you literally don't need to dodge ever again. So with Zhongli you could skip out on the healer. So that meant,
and he does more damage now just because, right?
Exactly. He shreds elemental defense and all that stuff. It's so crazy, and since he gives you like stagger resistance,
Right.
it actually means that you deal more DPS, right? You don't need to dodge as much as you usually would need to.
Right.
At least this is true for the casual player. For a speedrunner, that's an exception. They don't use Zhongli because they just one-shot everything, or they just dodge, right? But okay, whatever. For the standard population of Genshin, it is a DPS increase to use Zhongli.
It kind of almost makes you like more. It makes Abyss more accessible, almost like having Zhongli. Like,
it's a good thing. In general, I think Zhongli is a good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think MiHoYo thought that he broke the game a bit too much, because there was a shield meta going on. Like every Abyss used Zhongli. That's not so true anymore today because of Dendro. But okay, that's another topic. But the thing with Zhongli is that he was also countered in some way. Shield was so strong in Abyss, MiHoYo had to indirectly nerf him, right?
the wolves and stuff.
Exactly, there you go. So we had the corrosion introduction during the Inazuma release. And after that, they nerfed him once again when we came to Chasm, because then we met the Black Serpent Knights.
Right.
And they have these anti-shield mechanics where if they hit you while you're shielded, then they get this pyro shield on themselves.
Right.
And it's so annoying. You have to have Hydro or whatever to deal with it. They basically get buffed when they hit you with shield.
Yeah, which I think is pretty smart, honestly, to balance.
It is. I mean, like Zhongli. I mean, shield has been too strong for too long. Yeah. And the thing is that the alternative would be to use healers, right?
Right.
And I think that what's coming up right now with Fontaine just right around the corner, I believe that this would be the last wave of shield counters, so to speak. I'm not sure if you have noticed, but based on the latest information, we have actually seen the artifact descriptions of the...
Oh, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember. We discussed about it in the Discord even. But okay, whatever. The point is that Fontaine seems to be promoting healers quite a bit. So you gain buffs based on HP movements. So it doesn't matter if you take damage or if you heal up. As soon as you HP moves up or down, you get some stacks of some buffs or whatever.
Wow.
And you don't get that if you have a shield, right? You don't take damage. Simply.
Right. Unless you self-harm like Hutao or something.
Yeah, exactly. Except for it has to be an inbuilt mechanic in that case.
Right, like.
But that was basically Zhongli breaking the game or redesigning, forcing MiHoYo to redesign around his shield mechanic.
Interesting.
Okay, but there's more to it. I mean, like after Zhongli, we got Raiden, right?
Right. Yep.
And this is also something quite interesting. Raiden National became a thing as soon as Raiden was released.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in my opinion, that completely destroyed the game. Or not destroyed the game, but it messed up the balance a bit in the sense that it was super strong. And for the first time ever, many people truly understood the importance of ER. Because for a Raiden team, ER is never an issue.
Right.
So for the first time ever, you are able to rotate your teams properly with the skill and burst.
my god, yeah, like not having to do the thing you're talking about, like tapping the Bennett.
Exactly. You don't need to do the funneling from Bennett to Xiangling and stuff like that. I think maybe this was around the time you got your first 36 stars, I believe, or could that be true?
What?
The first time you got 36 stars in the Abyss.
Oh yeah, Raiden National.
So that would should have been Raiden National meta, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also a issue back in that time. The issue was that I don't know if it's truly a counter to Raiden or even a way to promote Raiden, but we started realizing that the energy gain from monsters in Abyss has been steadily decreasing. So
yes,
it actually
yes.
puts pressure on the player to build even more ER, which is something that we usually don't do. We tend to neglect it, or we tend to forget about it. We don't think about the second rotation. We just want the first rotation to deal a lot of damage, and then good luck funneling the energy, right?
Right, exactly.
For the rest of the rotation. No, but there was a very clear trend of this, let's say, energy power creep going on during the release of Raiden. But of course, if you played Raiden, you wouldn't have such a big issue with it. So it was a good thing to keep on using Raiden.
Right.
Or maybe she was generating just way too much energy. That it made it way too easy. Even with Raiden now, you still might need to funnel the energy a tiny bit, maybe 1 or 2 Bennett skills, but that's it.
Yeah, but you know, like the point is that she most likely caused them to change up a lot of this stuff, right?
Maybe, yeah. The thing is that I don't know if it's a direct counter to her, but it could also be a way to promote her, right? Because if you have energy issues, how do you solve it? Well, slap on Raiden into your team.
Right, yeah.
She's the solution to the problem they created.
But obviously, long term, that's not really good. Like, because like just having Raiden as the solution, right?
No, I mean, like, I think in today's meta, things have changed a bit. I think the energy requirements are much harsher now. If you've seen Faruzan's energy requirements, before you reach C6, it's recommended that you have up to 300 ER. We've never seen such a high number before.
Yeah.
But Faruzan might be the first one to reach that number. Like, unless you have Faruzan and something close to 300 ER, you can't even rotate, use her in a proper rotation. You can't use burst every rotation. That's a bit that's a bit weird, to be honest. That's why her C6 makes her broken, because that cuts the energy requirement in half, essentially.
Yeah. Dang.
But okay, after Raiden's whole meta that lasted forever, she was extremely dominant and extremely strong, and many people managed to 36 stars the Abyss for the first time, so to speak. And during this time, I think that the game became a tiny bit stale almost. But okay, Dendro changed everything, right?
Right.
When Dendro released, the game became opened up so much more new interactions, so to speak, and so much more new ways to play the game. But it also, once again, messed up with the game balance a bit. Because we know that with the release of Dendro, especially Nahida, we unlocked some really, really strong team compositions. And as you know, it's the beloved Hyperbloom team.
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah, exactly. We all love Hyperbloom. It's so strong. And it was so strong during the initial Dendro release that I think that for many super casual players, that should have been their first 36 stars.
I mean, remember we did an episode on Kuki and like how like people were saying she's useless. And then
suddenly she's like the best unit in the game.
Oh my god, now she's amazing for all these teams.
Yeah, all you needed was the slow electro application, right?
Right.
Yeah, the problem with Dendro, or it's not a problem, maybe it's a good thing, but the way you abuse Dendro is that it requires so little effort to make it work. All you need is a triple EM cookie, and there you have it. Yeah, there you go. That's as much investment as you can possibly get, because you're not chasing crit substats or anything like that.
Right, that's amazing.
And you get enough damage to basically pass all the damage checks in the whole game, including Spiral Abyss.
Yeah, so there you go. It's changed so much, and then we get at Dendro again. The new element was the craziest thing that has really shifted the entire game in one direction. And I'm thinking I'm just really curious if they are going to possibly incorporate some of these mechanics from Fontaine into the new Abyss, especially because this is just a what if thing. They could do it if they wanted to, put those orb things that you grab or like put a different way of introducing the mechanic into Abyss, or maybe even into certain characters that allow you to use this like arc Numa Oisha system thing. Because like, you know, if they're gonna do what they're doing already to make like target really specific things, like it sounds like the way that you're mentioning the way they do Abyss now is like they're kind of targeting things that are too strong, and they're like building the Abyss around that almost. Well, they could like
yeah, kind of, yeah, exactly.
Right, but they could always reverse the philosophy, and they could say we have a new mechanic, and we want to build the Abyss around this so that you use the new mechanic, and then they could come up with some kind of crazy thing that they want to do. So I'm curious if we'll ever see, another shift in Abyss after the Abyss actually resets.
I think that's a good take.
14.
I mean, like it sounds plausible to me that they will play around this new gimmick, so to speak, with Usia and Numa.
I know someone's like, what's their prediction is that like, so Lynette, right, has the has one of these things, and Lynette is a free character you get. She has like the Numa.
Lynette is Usia most likely, I think.
Yeah, and so like, possibly the Hydro Traveler will have one of them, the other one, so that you have both of them. It
makes sense. Exactly. That's why. Exactly.
So maybe they will be useful in Abyss for some reason because of this. If you don't have Linny or you don't have Freminet, for example. But we'll see.
It makes sense because if you think about it, the Hyperbloom teams actually forced MiHoYo to make harder and harder Abysses. I don't know if you noticed it, but Abyss was really easy towards the end of last year.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's when I cleared it. Like multiple times.
Even during the first part of this year, it was still quite easy, so to speak. And then after that, I think MiHoYo felt like they had to do something about these Hyperbloom teams. They had to raise the overall difficulty of Abyss because everyone was now doing so much damage, right?
Man, I wonder what the team that makes the meta is like talking about all the time. Just like, hey, did you see that speedrunning competition? Like they just obliterated our Abyss with
no.
Like,
it can't be based on speedruns.
It's been kind of thematic if you think of it like that. Like early on when you had Venti, when there's not a lot of big enemy models at all, you know, the meta's obviously going to be like, how can you like crowd control, gather them all up, and then wipe them out all at once. And then you had the shield meta, which appropriately came out with Zhongli and Liyue, because as people progress through that region, now they're introduced to the whole new element, so it's thematic in that sense. And then Riot and Shogun, you have a big focus on energy recharge. Now you can get teams that constantly can spam their bursts a lot more often. Then Nihida with a new element, you have elemental reactions. Now you want to try and play with teams that interact with the elemental reaction. So it's very thematic as the story progresses. So like going into Fontaine, when we have the focus on Hydro and potentially a focus on healing again.
Exactly.
Hydro characters are going to shine. Any team that interacts with Hydro is going to shine. But then also you have this new type of damage or mechanic, the Ouija and the Numa energies. It's going to be a new thematic meta. So we still have yet to come out and experiment with all the characters. The one that everyone's going to get right away is going to be Lynette. So when they put her into some teams, take her into Abyss, see how it goes. Then, of course, we're going to see, okay, what kind of teams do we want to use with these particular characters? And that's going to really be the defining moment. Once we start to see how these fights are going to go, both in like the Archon story and the, you know, exploration open world, and then bringing all those enemies we see into the Abyss, we're going to figure out, okay, this one particular team matches everything, or it's going to be really good for these kinds of weapons or this specific stat. Is there a stat you think they're going to be really hyper-focused on this next expansion?
Healing, it sounds like, right?
Healing
bonus,
really.
Like, healing bonus, but what about like HP? Would that be? I think HP is going to be like the biggest focus?
HP scaling might be a thing. We even saw Freminet with the bell. That shocked me, actually.
Oh my god, the bell. imagine the bell's not even his best in slot.
Oh, okay. No, that's troll.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I'm really hoping Fontaine or like Focalor. She pronounced it Focalor,
right,
which is what surprised me. But I'm just gonna say Focalor. So Focalor, if she uses the Claymore and if she uses HP, I'm just gonna put the bell on her, and that's gonna be her weapon.
Because but you gotta like look at her weapon first, right? Like, yeah, like
Mhm.
what depends on her what her weapon is. So yeah, so how about this last thing I want to mention about Abyss is like, what do you want to see in the future of Spiral Abyss? Like, is there something that you've always wanted to see, like with the actual like through the besides like having artifacts that swaps and stuff like that, like the actual Spiral Abyss, like you would like to see them focus on this, or you want to see more of this? Like, is there anything like that?
I mean, like in some sense, I think it's in a good spot. I mean, like it's the only end game content we have. It's the hardest content we have by far, because the overworld monsters are just way too weak, right? You can't even perform a full rotation on them.
Right.
So if you actually want to play the game or actually want to utilize the combat, then the Abyss is the go-to place. But at the same time, I feel like they have been alternating a bit between a really difficult Abyss and a really weak Abyss, so to speak.
Right.
I don't know if you remember, there were a certain infamous Abysses we had in the past few months or
What are you
so.
talking about? You were helping me do it on stream. Of course, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, do you remember the Wii Nuts Abyss?
Yeah.
That
Oh
was
yeah.
terrible.
Oh true. Yeah.
Oh god, that was so bad. And then after that one, we had quite recently, we had the Triple Herald, right?
Right.
With the double cryo shield and single hydro shield.
Right.
And then after that, we have the quadruple consecrated beast, and that was pure.
Yeah. No, not my favorite thing.
Exactly. It's. I mean, like this is. It has been a part of this agenda to make Abyss harder and harder because of the general player base. Strength has been increasing steadily as Hyperbloom has become more and more normalized. But they can't keep on doing this forever, right? So what's the next thing they're gonna release? How are they gonna increase the difficulty even more? So it makes sense that they're gonna go around it and play more on the gimmicky parts of Fontaine. In this case, the Usia and the Numa.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's good enough that they are trying to alternate the Abyss difficulty a bit, hard and easy, because when it's hard, they are appealing to the hardcore base, right? People like me, like, oh, now I can finally try hard for real and actually
like this latest
sweat
event.
a bit. Yeah, yeah, sure, that one also too. But then again, they do occasionally come out with a quite easy and basic Abyss, and in that case, then all the other slightly more casual players can clear it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But something that's been bugging me about Abyss is, of course, that you only use kind of like meta characters or characters that are strong enough to actually clear it.
Right.
There's almost no incentive for me to build a weaker character. And I feel like that's part of the fun about Genshin's combat system and the Abyss in general, to craft new teams and to try out new characters and to work out their synergies together with the other units.
Yeah, I think that'd be nice to like. Well, that's another reason, right? Like this gimmick thing, like depending on how they make it work or what gimmicks they come up with in the future, I would love for them to retroactively apply. Like, we're this new mechanic we're learning is like, what's it called? It's only affecting Fontaine characters as far as we know. But like, think about Dendro. Dendro made characters who we don't use anymore relevant, right? Like you can use Kuki, you can use even Barbara. You know what I mean? Like giving her in like a Bloom team or something like that. Yeah. Like, you know, will there be things that help us to use these quote unquote weaker characters, and that can be in someone's kit, for example. Like we could have. Characters that buff certain kinds of characters. Like, I mean, physical damage is one example, but like we also have, maybe there are other characters that will use the way that Dia does stuff, or maybe use characters the way that Chung Yun does stuff. Maybe Razor will become relevant in some way. Like, we don't have a lot of foresight like in that sense, but I'm hoping that they give us reasons to use more characters in the past. But I mean, some of them are tough, like Xinyan's design, for example, doesn't make it super easy to use her in a lot of teams. But but we'll see what happens.
I think if there's one thing I would hope that I believe is technically possible within this game's framework is character or slot specific buffs for when you're building a team in the Abyss. Like, hey, if you put a character in this spot, then they will receive this one particular buff, which means you can aim a buff at a very specific character that you want. Like if you want to use Candace more, if you put Candace in this particular spot, that character will receive, in a massive HP bonus. What this also helps do is, for people who want to either show off or maybe have some other type of fun, is they can create like mono teams, like just have one character, see how overpowered they can make that one character, run to the abyss.
Yeah.
Or like if you want to run it with 4 characters, yeah, you can say this character will get that buff, this character will get this buff, and then you play a team. So it gives people variety. It still is fun. You can choose buffs. It's very reminiscent of Honkai Star Rail's blessing system, where I've been actually doing one character throughout that whole thing, just because it's pretty funny. But yeah, I really hope they could do something like that, like targeted buffs for a specific character. Because yeah, I want to play with bottom tier characters. I want to run Heizo through the entire Spiral Abyss one day. That'd be cool. But as of right now, I had to over invest into a character that I'm really not going to use over the other better character.
They could do something really crazy and add some kind of buff system or character that buffs a character based on what character they are. Like, here's one example. They could even add it in an artifact set or something. The freaking Liyue spear. Like the lithic spear that is buffed based on how many Liyue characters you have. Like that is not a concept that has been explored yet. Where it's like similar to the Nilou. Think about it, the Nilou bloom thing, where you have to only have Dendro and Hydro characters. That makes characters who are Hydro, who maybe we wouldn't have looked at before, more viable now in some way or another, right? Because we have to use an element type. So because we're getting to the point where we have so many characters and there are like these predominant or these dominant metas, like if we had more restrictions, but like you get buffed for using those restrictions, then it would give us more options in terms of like, imagine if we had to have an Electro Hydro team or an Electro Dendro team, and that you get a buff from that. Like it would give us more options to do like different things. So I think that and we're also, we haven't even we mentioned this before on the podcast, we've talked about it, but like augmenting reactions that way too, like having augments to reactions. Like even though this works one way, you have this character in your team and suddenly it works differently, right? Sort of similar to Nilou, but all Nilou does is really just buff damage. But she adds a restriction to your team that might have you to build.
You just reminded me about something, Sera. I don't know if I had this idea for like how to make Geo and Electro work. So how Animo has been like the only like crowd control like element, like pulls people in.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like Geo has been more of like defensive. But my idea to make Geo interact with Electro is if you have like a Geo construct or like a actually it's just limited to Geo constructs. If you have a Geo construct and then you apply Electro to a character, it will make that character magnetized to the Geo construct, kind of like Kazuha's like burst or like Venti's burst, and now suddenly you have Geo Electro teams.
Like it'll be like a crowd control,
like magnetism.
That sounds so good, actually.
Magnetism effect.
That would make Zhongli even better.
No, but
Zhongli and Raiden.
It's only Geo teams if you think about it.
Yeah, well, Geo Electro, right?
True, but like when was the last time Geo has been like overpowered? Like not really.
Never,
like
essentially.
Zhongli himself, never. But like Animo has always been like really like a big meta element. Then you skipped it over to Dendro, which is a meta element. Geo really has been all about like survival and making a thing appear in the world, which is meaningless because the boss just breaks it down.
Oh my god, that's the worst. Yeah.
I know, I hate that.
I think that's an excellent idea, actually. Yeah, because I mean, like traditionally, Geo has always had trouble with grouping up enemies, right? So if you give them a way to group up enemies, that's excellent. Especially because Geo has literally no synergy at all with Animo. So you never had any issues to mix them. And you never mix them otherwise.
We can obviously there were some people that were saying, they're calling for another Geo buff, like saying that Crystallize should just be like done away with in some degree. So what they decide to do, I'm really curious, because like they could also just decide one day to make Geo, Animo, and Dendro interact. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a thing right now, but they could always just say, oh, Dendro and Geo makes plants. Like, like whatever. Like, they could make something up.
Or frozen leaves.
Yeah, like cryo and Dendro too, right? Like these things that work the way they work now, like could change, or maybe one character, like I said, or maybe an artifact set even, or a weapon could like make the reactions work differently, and it would change the whole entire way we play the game. So like, I'm really curious about what possibilities we have, and I'm looking forward to seeing what strategies you come up with. How about that? So, but yeah, all right. So that's basically the bulk of our discussion on the end game of Genshin Spiral Abyss, and just kind of how it's changed and what maybe to expect in the future. So let's move on to our community discussion question.
みんなの分もあるよ
Which from last week we said, which character do you wait, I just remembered something. Sera, I forgot to ask you before we move on, who is your favorite Genshin character and why?
My favorite Genshin character? I mean, like, that's a bit of a seasonal question, I think.
Okay, so what about who's your favorite Genshin character right now?
It changes based
on
on
Kirara, isn't it?
No, what? I mean, like, right now it must be the Nilo team. That's so much fun to have a transformative reaction-based team. We've never seen that before.
Right.
And I really wish they could do something similar to the Crystallize reaction, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, like, that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Like, those make the game more interesting, and they change the way that we understand how it works, and give us more options. So, okay, so then I totally forgot about that. I was like, I want to mention that. So, our community discussion question from last week was, which character do you think would get in the most trouble in Fontaine? Now, Sera, I know you answered this on the Discord, but go ahead and tell us your answer for this.
For me, it's my answer is Albedo, because of Suspido. So how do you convince the court that you have a violent doppelganger and that you're in fact innocent?
That makes so much sense. Actually, like
that's very.
Oh, but this
you have a very good point.
This is like a oh no, okay. I actually was just talking about this in the last podcast. Interestingly enough, like Albedo coming into the story is weird because this whole story about the doppelganger was locked behind 2 limited events that happened.
That's so strange,
right?
Yeah,
so like it'd be weird for like him to come up in the Archon quest. I mean, obviously, I'm just saying this is just it doesn't have, maybe it could come up in a different way or whatever. But definitely interesting to think like, maybe that could be the third Albedo event where like this is what you're dealing with. Like Suspido does some stuff and then Albedo gets accused. That'd be so interesting. But it'd be weird for a character like Albedo to show up in the Archon quest because his whole story takes place behind these like limited events that you cannot experience again. But I think it's a really good answer. Kahi, what's your answer?
So I'm thinking of who would probably cause the most like crimes and violations in Fontaine, and knowing what Fontaine's all about. You have all of their harbors, you have their cities, you have their underground networks, you have a lot of different types of, I guess, protocols that you could break, either intentionally or unintentionally. So I'm thinking probably Beidou. Not just because I like Beidou, but it's because Beidou's boat would definitely cause like either some ocean traffic violation, or some contraband goods and transportation. Probably some crew members are not even documented and they can't prove any kind of papers. And once they even get onto the land and they have trouble, fitting into that kind of society with like their behavior, you have Beidou, who's probably going to get in trouble for many, many different reasons, even before she makes land. Just because, I mean, as a pirate, she's probably very well known to the port authorities. So I'm thinking Beidou. Like Beidou would probably get in the most trouble before she even gets to Fontaine. So who knows what else she's going to get into once she gets into the city. So yeah, that's my answer.
Nice. And so for me, I think Bennett would get in the most trouble because he would probably break a bunch of stuff, and that would probably not go well, especially because half of
that's pretty
half
real.
of the citizens are robots. So I don't think that would go very well. But anyway, so yeah, let's see what our community is saying on Discord, for example. So in Discord, the Descender 101 says, I have 2. First, 100% Klee. Ooh, that makes sense. They have so much water, and I don't think Klee would be able to control herself from bombing every fish. 2, which is probably pretty obvious, the Traveler will likely have some court-related issues happening. Yeah, well, probably. Pavo Noctua says, Bennett, no explanations required. Yup, same. Cloudy says, Alice, no question. She blew up Stormterror's lair because it wasn't ancient enough. Just think of what she would do with the amount of buildings in Fontaine. I wonder if Alice will come up in this story ever. Or is it still too early? Kian1 says, I would love to see the Wanderer get in trouble and see some of the new characters get into disputes in the court system against Wanderer. This could also give us a chance to learn more about him and how his part in the world will be connected. Maybe even Nahida come over to save him. I don't see that happening, but that is a really interesting guess. I mean, a Wanderer would most likely get in trouble somehow anywhere he goes, as far as I know. But he's weird because he has a nice Wanderer personality inside of him that's fused with his personality of the old Wanderer, so it's like a really interesting concept. Because we've seen him be nice before, like in the Interdarshan event, sort of. Salido says, Child gets arrested for trying to sell toys without a permit, or Dainsleff shows up for his annual checkup and gets arrested because Fontaine thinks he's Abyssal. Dainsleff, oh man, I'm not even sure, like, how, I'm so curious how Dainsleff is going to show up in Fontaine, because, like, or hopefully he is. But Child...
In the middle of the courtroom.
Right? But he, like, just shows up at the most, like, pivotal moment, like, dun! Child gets arrested for selling toys. Well, I mean, we know Child is there, so maybe he'll get arrested for selling toys without a permit. And Meowie says, Traveler. While Traveler is nice in general, they don't really bound by the laws of Tevat. I think for this rigid nation, that might translate to being rebellious. I mean, it's kind of similar to what happened in Inazuma in that sense. Like, they just went against everything that their leader was saying. Raccoon Warlock says, I think Farazan would get pissed at the fact that she has to verify her identity with international security, punches a cop, and then gets arrested. That's pretty good. Farazan. I can't imagine Farazan punching someone, but that'd be pretty funny. Lax says, Ito, unless Kuki was also there to stop him and or deal with legal issues. Yeah, that was my thought too. My other thought was Ito would just like go around accidentally doing stuff that they wouldn't want him to do, and maybe that would cause an issue. Kelbo Baggins says, maybe Sino. If Fontaine has different rules they follow, and Sino's trying to uphold his values instead of theirs, or simply they might just lock him up due to his jokes. Yeah, I mean, he's he knows where he's not a General Mahamatra, so I don't think he would do anything like that. But yeah, maybe they'll lock him up for jokes. I don't know how Fontaine is with that, so we never know. All right, that's all for Discord. What about on Spotify, Kahi?
So on Spotify, we have first up Octira, probably Arataki Ito. Yes, he would do something silly, not realizing it was against the law, then not take the trial seriously. He'd probably get more in trouble for obstruction of justice in that regard. Next up, we have the Prinzessin der Verrutelang. I feel like Klee would have a lot of trouble in Fontaine. She doesn't know or understand the law, so she would run around destroying different things with bombs. Yes, and yes. Especially if she likes to throw bombs into the lake to blow up the fish. This is going to be a lot bigger and more important lake. She's probably going to cause a lot of underwater damage. Next up, we have Todoroki Shoto, Traveler. So yeah, pretty much Traveler's gonna get in trouble. Also says you guys should do like your own events for your community, like camera contests or sometime combat challenges in your Discord. We definitely do have camera contests. Like I believe we have a weekly one going on. As far as combat challenges, I believe we do have a section where people like to do some co-op commissions and stuff like that. Josh,
no, actually, like Sera, remember we talked about this, like possibly
it's
getting to a point.
Try hard.
Yeah.
No,
like if we got to a point
sweaty.
where people would be interested in doing like sort of Spiral Abyss runs type of a deal. I think once Divine Ingenuity comes out, that'll actually be a lot better. If Divine Ingenuity was to become a permanent event, that would actually be way better. It'd be like a customizable Abyss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Community-based domains, stuff like that.
So, but like
because you can set parameters.
Exactly, and you have access to all characters. Everybody has the same gear. Like that would be much better, because otherwise it just becomes a fight on investment versus over investment or lack of investment. So, yeah. So, but like maybe one day we'll get to that. But it's definitely something we've thought about. And we'll see where that goes in the future. But thanks for the suggestion.
Next up, we have Emil Strange, who says, Kave, who else? We want him on a vacation to visit his mom and more Kave drama. You know what? That would be interesting. Like, Kave gets in trouble and, like, his mom has to come out. Like,
I could see it in, like, Kave Hangout Part 2.
You'd be fine, but no, yeah.
You know?
Kave would probably be... He probably want to build something, and then he realizes, oh, no, he doesn't have a permit, or it is violating the airspace in here, or who knows. Next up, The Gesture says, Klee, no explanation needed. Fish bombing. Pretty much. Yeah, if we're talking like damage, Klee has so much potential to ruin the world.
I like how he got an answer that was like, Bennett, no explanation needed, and then this person says, Klee, no explanation needed.
Next up, the Metalhead Otaku. Not question related, but the new microphone is a massive improvement. I am pinning that because I like the compliment. I really like this mic. Next up, we have Mr. Bruh. Says, Dory, because she would try to sell some shady stuff and get arrested. Yeah, I can see Dory trying to get arrested. Actually, I think Dory would probably get stopped at port because there's no way she could smuggle that into Fontaine. And lastly, we have Lulu, who says, definitely Ito. He would be sure to break every rule and be a living rat in the sewer.
There you go.
You know, yeah, Ito.
Oh yeah, we don't know anything about the underground world still. Like, we saw the trailer, but
Not
we
yet.
actually don't know what's going on there. It's so interesting.
It felt a bit like Honkai Star Rail, if you think about that.
Yeah, Bellabog. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Jarilo planet.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and that's all for Spotify.
Okay, Kahi, would you introduce next week's question?
All right, and so as we wrapped up our discussion this episode on 4.0 and the reveals, we want to ask you, what are you looking forward to the most in patch 4.0? We have some stuff in mind, one thing that we want to bring up next episode, but we'll let this, video and this, reveal kind of simmer throughout the community and see what they can dissect from it. But yeah, let us know, what are you looking forward to the most in patch 4.0?
Okay, so that being said, let's move on to our last segment, One Last Wish. So the three of us will be wishing on one banner of our choice, and see how it goes. So let's see, Sera, since you are the guest, would you like to go first?
All right, sure, I can go first.
What are you rolling on?
Yeah, exactly. I can't roll on Kokomi's banner. I already have her, and her C1 is okay. Wait.
Okay, wait a second.
No. Okay, the thing with C1 Kokomi is that it can actually help with more Hydra application, actually. So that's actually good for my Nilo team. Oh God.
Snap.
No, but think about this. I don't have Wanderer, right? So
you don't have Wanderer. Oh my God. Yeah.
Exactly.
What the?
Okay.
Yeah, what's not even a competition? Just go get Wanderer.
Okay, I might as well put one roll into that one. Okay,
Yes.
Let's go. Here we go. And it's blue. No,
man.
Let's see what I get. I was hoping for purple.
Yeah.
Sky Rider sword. Of course.
Of course. All right, Kahi, what about you?
Well, since I have Wanderer, I think next up is to get Wanderer's weapon. So I'm going to be rolling on the weapon
All right,
banner.
good luck.
It's blue.
Oh.
Of course.
What did I get? I wonder. Oh, it's a bow. Slingshot. Well, all right, Josh, your turn.
All right.
What are you going to be rolling for?
I have Wanderer's weapon, Wanderer C1, and Kokomi C0. But I think I will just possibly entertain the thought of having Wanderer C2. So I will.
Yeah, go for it.
I will do it. So let's see. And it is blue. Wow, we all lost. No. It's not how it was supposed to be. Debate club? Are you kidding me right now? I have a debate for you.
Sad.
I mean, in terms of like blue weapons, you might have won because like of all the ones that are the most useful, yours is the most useful.
No. Slingshot, I would argue for is good.
Really?
Yeah, Slingshot is usable. Yeah.
Okay, you don't know day one meta, do you? Like physical official was the thing back in the day.
Yeah, you have a point.
And everyone had an R5 slingshot,
I remember
right?
official.
So good. Yeah.
Okay, now that you bring that up,
the
yes,
nostalgia,
physical
right?
damage on a bow.
All right. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. That wraps up the show for today. If you have time, please leave us a comment and a review. We'd really appreciate it. Sera, once again, thank you for being a guest on the podcast today. I hope you had a good time.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, so we'll see you on the Discord. And for those of you listening, if you haven't already joined the Discord, come join the Discord. We'll talk about Spiral Abyss, a bunch of other things in there, and it is a very good time. And it's a really nice community. So thank you all very much for being a part of it. Now, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to the podcast, YouTube maybe, and follow us on Twitter. Once again, we have at Genshin Guys Pod. My Twitter is at JSide Gaming. My Twitch is JSide. My Twitch is twitch.tv/JSide. Kahi is Kahiao, KAHIYAO on Twitter and YouTube. And as always,
At Astra Abyssos.
星と支援を目指せ
Enjoy.